This week, an internal leak from the Supreme Court was shared online for the world to see. In it was the details to possibly overturn Roe v. Wade in a decision that would directly impact the subject of abortion and allow states to decide on the legality of them. In the last 48 hours, many people have taken to their personal social media posting their thoughts on this, and as I'm sure you have seen, people have a passionate thought and take on these issues. Understandably, regardless of the side, people are in an uproar for or against this subject, putting it front and center in your workplace, school, home, and anywhere else in between. So, as Christians, what does the Bible actually say about abortion? And how should we, as Christians, be talking about this both online and in person to our friends, coworkers, youth, students, and kids who might have a different understanding or opinion than we do? That's what I want to talk to you guys about and get into right after this. My one request as we get into the subject is that regardless of where you might stand on this issue at the moment, that you would be willing to hear me out with an open mind and see my heart on this matter. I'm not starting from a political stance telling you how to vote or what policies would best solve this, and it's easy to assume that when I say something you don't like or disagree with, to believe my political stance is on the other side and tune out completely. But I don't want to start with a political debate. I'll get into that later in the video and why that is and what Christians should actually care about when it comes to this realm and this subject. But really, my desire is to start with what does the Bible actually say on this matter? Because if you are a Christian, this should be the lens in which you view and understand the world. The other part is how to apply that biblical wisdom, what we understand there, in how Christians should talk about abortions and what actions they should or shouldn't be taking, and how to address some of the most popular aspects and obstacles surrounding this issue. If you aren't a Christian, but you're just checking out this video either out of curiosity or to just hear a different perspective, no, I just appreciate you and value that you are doing that. You are in the minority of just people in general willing to step outside of an echo chamber and consider other aspects of an argument, even if it's being done with the purpose of just improving your own argument. If you are someone who has had an abortion, know this and hear my heart, that God still sees you and loves you. And I hope you really do see in this video, my desire isn't to hurt, but to help by sharing this truth and helping to see what we can do on this issue. So thank you in advance if you are here. So starting with what does the Bible actually say about abortion? Well, one of, if not the most popular passage quoted by Christians when it comes to this issue of abortion is Psalms 139 verses 13 through 16. As the writer states the reality of how much God cares about and is intentional in the process of creating humans, here's what he says: "For you created my innermost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful, I know that fully well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place. When I was woven together in the depths of the earth, your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be." So this passage is talking about how each human life starts in the womb, that God is at work in the miracle of creating life inside of a woman's womb. Now, this is where the first debate on this issue comes into play. For Christians, we should read this and understand that life starts at conception, and because of that, these unborn lives matter and should be protected. For those in the pro-choice camp, they would view what is growing inside of the womb as a lump of cells that are just a part of the mother and thus can be removed no different than a tumor or unwanted part of the body. And they feel that they are fighting for personal freedom of choice. Having a child in their mind might prevent them from living the life they want, and this personal choice of having an abortion could help alleviate that pain and give them the freedom to stay on track for the life that they truly desire. This is an important understanding when having a conversation on this issue. Starting on the common ground, I think both sides would agree that the killing of innocent people is wrong. Hurting those unable to protect themselves or have a say in the matter is unfair and wrong. It's the reason why so many were willing to band together in support for Ukraine and change their profile pics like this, or give money to aid in relief efforts to save human lives over there. We all agree we should support and protect the life of the innocent, especially those who are unable to defend themselves. We all believe a human life is valuable and worth protecting. These principles apply all the more to toddlers, infants, and babies. The killing of a child ever should be seen as illegal. So if what is growing in a woman's womb is actually a baby, isn't that a life worth protecting too? This is at the crux of the issue here, not a debate over just the laws, but over the facts. Is the fetus just a clump of cells, or is it a growing baby? In today's world, it seems that a lot of people's view on this is based on what the woman carrying wants to do with their pregnancy. If they are happy and excited, you are happy and excited for them and want to celebrate that life growing inside of them. But if it's an unwanted pregnancy, that view and principle changes quickly and becomes a personal choice. And the view of what is growing inside the womb changes to just, again, a clump of cells. This is a pretty big inconsistency, but I understand the feeling of this feeling right, because it feels very American to let people have freedom of choice, or at least it does when it fits our narrative. It feels like it should be left up to the woman to decide on their view of what is growing inside of them as a baby or not. But the reality is, we wouldn't want this to be how we decide any other life as valuable or not. Or to put it another way, we wouldn't want somebody else deciding for us on if our life is worth protecting or not. Not the government, not a group of people, or even your own parents. We know that our life has intrinsic value. Our lives are worth living, regardless of how other people might view us, think of us, or what they want to see happen to us, regardless of the inconvenience we might be to others. This is why we have rights that protect kids or teenagers from being killed on the spot when they talk back to their parents and they've had enough, or from murdering that annoying coworker that you know that just knows how to get under your skin.
Why are you the way that you are?
So these rights should be extended to all humans. What the psalmist is saying in 139 is backed by science then and biology. We understand better now more than ever before, thanks to technology, that this is a human life. Just Google right now on your smartphone a 10-week-old fetus and you can see for yourself that the fetus growing inside the womb has its own unique DNA. It has and developed its own heartbeat, fingers, toes, and unique fingerprints. This is a separate life that God is putting together in the womb, and is a life that at this moment is unable to speak or defend itself. So those rights should be protected and expanded to them. Another common objection to this from a pro-choice person would be to see that regardless of those facts, that the dependency of the mother and the inconvenience this pregnancy brings to her is proof that this isn't a life, because it's not yet independent enough to sustain itself in life. Thus, it is not a person. This is called the argument of consciousness. If this is the case, we want to look at both old people that are dependent upon others in a retirement home, as well as babies outside of the womb, like my young daughter here, Violet, who is still unable to sustain herself. She is dependent upon my wife to provide her the food necessary to grow and continue to develop, or at the very least for me to put together a formula. The reality is, this is a bad take on how to define personhood. The Bible does not draw such a distinction between fetus and baby. The Greek word brehos is used in the Bible to refer to both an unborn child and an infant. By the time a baby is conceived, he or she is recognized by God, as demonstrated in Jeremiah 1:5. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you, and before you were born, I consecrated you. The sixth commandment of the Bible in the Old Testament shows us, thou shalt not kill, Exodus 20:13, and this applies to all human beings, including unborn babies. A new study showed that 71% of Americans are in support of legal limitations on abortions, either saying none at all or that it shouldn't happen past a certain point. Some say 15 or 10 weeks, others say even sooner than that. The last major objection I want to look at here before going into what is the Christian response and responsibility is that pro-choice would voice, well, what about those who are assaulted and forced into now carrying a child? And if abortions are made illegal, people are just going to find other ways to have a at-home abortion, which can be unsafe for the mother and the baby, especially those who would be wanting an abortion done out of a health and safety concern. Let me start by saying the news does a horrible job at giving the facts and truth, and social media just takes this misinformation and amplifies this even more. If Roe v. Wade is actually overturned, it doesn't mean a sweeping law of no more legal abortions, as much as social media might be in celebration or in disarray of thinking it does. This is not the case. What would happen is that the states would be able to decide themselves what is the best law without the federal government telling all states that they must do this or that. even if they disagree with it. This is, I think personally, a better option and a better representation of freedom of choice, but I'll get into that in a minute and explain why that is. First, to those who disagree, the biggest thing that they would say is, well, it just makes it harder for those without the means to travel to where it is legal to have these things done. It's not readily available in their town or around the corner in their neighborhood. To that, here's my thought. We shouldn't view abortions like it's a contraception. To the figurative, situational young teenager who got pregnant because she was assaulted, there are other options that would cause far less psychological, spiritual, and emotional damage. Also, this idea of most women not using abortion in this way and are more just for these rare cases isn't the reality either. The women that are having an abortion out of necessity of their health is less than 1% of the ones doing it. Rather, a recent report showed that 45% of all women having abortions every year have had at least one previous abortion before that, while 8.6% of women who have undergone an abortion in 2014 had 3 or more abortions, according to a report by the CDC. As one doctor noted that after abortions were legalized, contraceptions rose by nearly 30%, but birth actually fell by 6%, indicating that many women were using abortion as a method of birth control, a crude and drastic sort of insurance policy. The idea of viewing abortion as a get out of jail or motherhood free card is wrong, especially knowing that fetuses feel the pain of being aborted. This means that 1 out of 2 abortions that are taking place right now are from women who have already been through this process before and aren't doing it because it was an accident or a rare occasion, but more just someone who is sleeping around, got pregnant again, and doesn't want to deal with the consequences of a baby. The reality is, I am pro-choice. I am pro you choosing to not have sex so you are ready and able to possibly have a child and give it the best life, which studies have shown over and over again is statistically proven to be inside of a marriage. If you choose to go and have sex, there are consequences to your actions, and those potential consequences is having a child. With sex, there is always the risk of pregnancy. An unborn child should not be punished for a mistake to adults who should know better. If it really is a situation that wouldn't be healthy or good for the child, adoption is always on the table. As for the argument that women will just do it anyways in an unhealthy and unsafe way, this isn't a strong argument that law should be made around, and I think we should all agree if we just applied it to any other subject. We shouldn't ban slavery because, well, people will just sell slaves in an unsafe, unhealthy way. We shouldn't prohibit drunk driving because people will just do that anyways in secret. We shouldn't outlaw stealing because stealing will still take place. This argument would be a bad meter on how to decide what laws to put into place and what should be left alone. My heart does break for those who face an unplanned pregnancy and maybe don't have the support around them to feel like they have no other option of hope but to abort a child. This is why I want to talk directly to Christians, church leaders, and my fellow theologians. I think the church and Christians can always do better and need to do better if our hope and desire is to see the number of abortions be as low as possible. It's not going to be by just creating more laws around abortion, although this will help mitigate some, but it's going to be by being just as passionate about communicating and making available these 3 different things as Christians seem to be about wanting to talk and be passionate about abortion. Those 3 things are supporting adoption agency and orphanages. Also, single mother ministries that are willing to talk and walk with these women as they go through this journey. The third one is creating better job opportunities to better come alongside those facing these hard circumstances and help them make abortion seem like an undesired option. It is unfair for us to read these passages and pull from scripture and get our posters out and try to shame and tell women arriving at an abortion clinic to repent and change their decision without providing real alternative opportunities of hope for them. Hear me. Yes, the gospel presents hope for all in every situation. Yes, that is what every single one of us, including me and you, need. But if they are in a place of fight or flight and are unable to see hope in anything other than abortion, what makes you think yelling at them, holding a sign saying you're going to hell is someone they want to listen to or have a real conversation with? At best, you might scare them a bit or maybe even change their mind in that moment. But if we aren't helping to create better adoption options, if we aren't seriously considering adopting ourselves or aren't willing to support adoption agencies, how are we really creating hope for those lost in that moment? I understand those in religious households are already twice as likely to adopt a child, but I believe and pray if we were really passionate about these things, we could do even better. It has been proven, regardless of red or blue states, that those states that have a strong presence of these things in them do a better job at lowering the abortion rate in their states. This is why I think it is better to allow the states to decide and allow us, the voters in the area, to have a better chance of creating a better impact on the experience women in these situations face. We need to be willing to be intentional about coming alongside them, encouraging them, and helping them. That we would be intentional on a local and state level. This goes hand in hand with how the Bible teaches that all Christians should care for the widows and orphans. Deuteronomy 14:29 says this, "And the Levites, because he has no portion or inheritance with you, and the soldiers and the fatherless and the widows who are within your town shall come and eat and be filled, that the Lord your God may bless you in all the work of your hands that you do." Yes, there is an element of responsibility that does come with somebody who decides they are old enough to have sex and now have to face the consequences. But when this is the stance of Christians and there is nothing more to it, this isn't showing grace or love for my neighbor. This isn't even showing them the reality of what the gospel truly is, because that's not how God operates and treats us. He doesn't say, well, you sinned and now you have to face all the consequences of that. The gospel is getting what we don't deserve and not getting what we do deserve, grace and mercy. So please, Christians, people of the internet, the best thing we could do is not post passive-aggressive tweets posted on our Instagram story. It's not talking past each other. It's learning to have a real conversation. It's learning to be patient with one another in love and starting with common grounds and looking at these things objectively and looking at these objections logically, and not allowing feelings of what feels right or emotional language to drive the conversation. If this still feels wrong that a straight man is the one talking about these things, just remember the world and leaders telling you that this is a woman's rights issue can't even define what a woman is anymore. So that is our video about the abortion topic and how to best navigate a conversation with somebody. Sorry if this one was a bit longer than my usual videos. Hopefully you stuck around to the end. And if you did, consider subscribing or liking or sharing this video. I put a ton of resources in the description on all the data and studies that I quoted here. I referenced throughout this entire video can be found in there. So this can kind of be like a resource hub for some of you or something to look back on before your conversation. If you did enjoy this video, please consider supporting our brand new Patreon so we can keep making videos like this to help Christians navigate this world that we're in and continue to reach the lost. If this week you find yourself being mentally exhausted by what you see on the news and social media, I encourage you to check out this video over here where we talk about how to know if you should take a break from social media. But with that, guys, know that you are valued and loved, and I'll see you soon.